Hey guys, MC Stu here, and today we're going to talk about Category 1 and Category 2 damage in the game, or bonus damage, as Category 2 is otherwise known as. This gets, or can get, extremely complicated when you take into account modifiers and skill tree and just all the other massive amounts of layers in the game that boost your damage and other things. So we're going to keep it kind of straightforward here and just kind of look at those two things, what they are, and do some demonstrations on showing those two differences between Cat 1 and Cat 2 in action. I've been aware of this and what it is for quite a while, at least on a high level. I did quite a bit of reading prior to making this video. There's some really good breakdowns on this, and to be honest, the math gets kind of crazy. Some of it has to do with because of how many layers there are, and so I'll link those down in the description if you guys are interested in checking that out. Like I said, there's some really good workups that go into just extremely crazy amounts of detail on how to calculate this stuff out. But in order to get, real life in-game examples with the numbers coming out exact, you would need to, have, ranked up or leveled up a character fairly high to where you could get your hands on sets that give you bonus damage, and at the same time have not filled out your skill tree or any of the other things that would affect kind of where your damage output boosts are when you're sitting still with no buffs. And it would be extremely difficult. The easiest way, I guess, would be to use a brand new character, at level 1, but you wouldn't be able to get your hands on some of the things you would need to demonstrate that. So I'm not going to worry about, the math and things coming out to an exact science here. If you want to dig into the math, like I said, those links will be in the description so you can see how these are broken down. Probably get a headache like I did, but even with that being said, we can still look at what those differences are and see real examples of those differences between those two boosts in action, demonstrate that working. So let's go ahead and start with what is Category 1. So let's just start with that. So a Category 1 boost would be what you get from, say, tactical consoles, for instance. So your fleet consoles, or just regular tactical consoles that you would get, this one fully upgraded is giving us 39.4% phaser damage boost plus. And what that is calculated on is the base damage of the weapon, and that's the hard part to be able to demonstrate. So like if you go down to ground, you can get one number. If you go up to space, you get another number when you're just hovering over a weapon. But because of your skill tree and all these other different things, those numbers are just kind of off a bit when you're trying to do that exact math, and that's where it doesn't come out. So what this is this number that you're getting from these Category 1 boosts, which is all of these consoles down here, is calculated on what's called the base damage of the weapon. And generally speaking, the base damage would be what this weapon shows for phaser damage while you're on the ground. Now, there are some mitigating things that will affect that, so that's why we're just not going to dig into it. And so let's make this example easy. Okay, let's say that this weapon here I have highlighted, let's just say it does 100 phaser damage, okay? And let's say we add a console, one of these, and let's say that it adds 10% base damage to it. So pretty straightforward. That would give you 110 phaser damage, right? Because the base damage is 100, and the boosting console that we have is giving us 10%. So it's taking 10% of that base damage and it's being added to it. So now we have a weapon with one tactical console that is giving us 110 phaser damage. Let's say we added a second tactical console that's giving us the same amount, okay, another 10%. That next 10% is calculated again on the base damage of the weapon. So it's not calculated on that 110 phaser damage. So it's not calculated on the base damage and that first tactical console. It's calculated again on the base damage of the weapon. So that would give us another 10%, giving us 120%. Let's say we added a third. Again, that's going at Cat 1 is going to be calculated off the base damage, off of that base 100 phaser damage, not off of the 120 phaser damage that we have from the two previous consoles that we added. If it was, then that would give us another 12 phaser damage, but it is not. So it is going to give us that 10 phaser damage again added, putting us at 130. Now, let's say that we added another console, a fourth one that was also 10%, but let's say it was category 2 or bonus damage. And what that does is that is going to take the base damage along with all of your category 1. So right now in the example that we're making, we have 3 tactical consoles, and that is giving us a total of 130 phaser damage. And if we were to add another console, but this console happened to be a bonus damage or a category 2 damage, that is going to calculate off of all of it, off the 130. So that's going to give us an additional 13 damage increase instead of that straight 10 off of the base damage that we would get. So that would give us a total of 143 phaser damage. And so that's a real basic example with very small numbers. And so that seems like not a lot of a difference, right? Because one, they're all 10%, but one is category 1 and one is category 2 boost. And the category 2 in the example we just went over is only giving you 3 more than what you would get, you know, if it was category 1. So when you're dealing with those very small numbers, that doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're dealing with a weapon that's sitting still here, and this again isn't base damage, but just to give you an example of where we're just sitting here, we're sitting at 2,288.5 phaser damage. So when we get into numbers like that, that is going to be an exponential increase between category 1 and category 2. So let's look at an example of this so we can just kind of see this difference here, okay? And while I'm setting this up, let's talk about also how to identify what's category 1 and what's category 2. So generally, category 1 is just going to be a plus whatever percentage, right? So in this instance, on this particular fleet console we're looking at, it's plus 39.4%, Cat 1. If it says bonus damage, bonus is the term you're looking for when you're determining, you know, how you're putting a build together or what's good and what's not. So if you look at traits, for instance, and we can do that by looking at, in fact, I have one here I unslotted because I didn't want it getting weird while I was doing this, but we'll use this for the example as well. Anchored, for instance. So anchored is going to give us 1 stack of anchored every 5 seconds, up to 4 maximum. And this is going to give us plus 5 all damage bonus. And so you'll see this middle part change depending on what, you know, the bonus is, but this particular trait is going to give us this bonus damage with up to 20% bonus, which is huge on anything. So this could be a science build, and it's going to boost science, it's going to boost phaser, torpedo, whatever it may be. There's other sets where it says it'll give phaser X amount of bonus damage, but the key word that we're looking for is bonus. If bonus is in there, then that is the keyword or the term that they use for designating if something is a category 2 boost. So let's go ahead and take a look at the example here. And we'll start actually with using anchored. So let's take a look at this weapon here. This weapon sitting still with the way the ship is currently configured is giving us damage, phaser damage of 2,172. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add this tactical console back in. All right, so that's back on, and that has brought us up to 2,288. So that was a little bit over 100 phaser damage that was added in. Okay, so let's remember that number here. I'm going to write it down. So that is 2,288 with this tactical console slotted here. Okay, So we're going to go ahead and let's take that back off. So we have our 2,288 with that tactical console. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to slot anchored, and I'm going to let that build up to the 20%. Okay, so this is 20% bonus damage. So now that's activated, it'll start stacking. So it looks like we have 1 stack right now, and this will count up all the way to 4. So bear in mind, anchor is a maximum of 20% after you've been sitting still for the duration to max that out. And the tactical console with the Cat 1 is almost 40%. So this console here is 20% more of Category 1 compared to that 20% of Category 2. So basically 40% Category 1 compared to what we're now going to look at with anchored at 20% of Category 2. So let's look at that same weapon. So with anchored fully boosted at the 20% bonus damage, we are now sitting at 2,550. So that is almost just shy of 300 phaser damage more, having 20% of bonus or category 2 damage than it is using the tactical console that is 40% category 1. So that increase from, if this slot, if you were having to pick between using one thing or another in this slot, and you could slot something that gave you category 2 damage, it's going to be much, much more to go with category 2, even if that number is much smaller, because we're talking about half the percentage between these two items that we're comparing. Let's look at another example where we can kind of actually see parts here. So let's go ahead and just take this off just so it's not making things weird. Okay, so we're sitting still again, and the weapon without anything or without having that slot filled, we are sitting at 2,172. Okay, so I'm going to write that down, 2,172. We are going to add in our console here from the fleet, which is giving us the almost 40% category 1. And that is going to give us now 2,288.5. I'm going to just get rid of the decimals so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so that gave us a little over 100, just like in our previous example. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a set bonus, and it's going to be this item here and this item here. Okay, and let's just look at that set bonus before we throw that in there. So that 2-piece bonus is going to give us, all right, 2-piece bonus is going to give us plus 7.5 bonus phaser, disruptor, plasma, or tetrion energy weapons damage. I'll link these two items in the description as well, just so if you're interested. These are fairly easy to get ones. One's a rep piece, and the other one's actually a mission drop, and they actually make up a set. There's multiple pieces. The rest of it come from the rep system, but it's one of those weird things where the rep system has a piece of its set that's actually from outside of the rep system. It's from a mission drop. So we're going to be comparing this set here, which is giving us plus 7.5 bonus phaser damage in this instance, compared to the fleet console, which is giving us that almost 40. Now, we also want to look at, and we don't want to make this too complicated, but this console itself does give us some Cat 1, right? And so that Cat 1 is 17.2 phaser damage. So even if we add those two things together, that's still less than that 40%. We are mixing those things, and that's where this gets kind of weird. But again, it'll illustrate the fact that bonus damage just has a much, much larger effect than what you would get with your Cat 1 standard base damage boost. So let's go ahead and pull that off, and let's go ahead and slot this here. And let's go ahead and take a look at the effect that this has. So let me pull up my notepad so we can compare these numbers again. All right, so with the tactical console, we were at 2,288, and with this set bonus, we are sitting at 2,368. So again, another example of what is seemingly or what is a much smaller percentage when calculated from a bonus or Cat 2 standpoint, is just a huge boost in comparison to what you're getting out of Cat 1. Now, if you go through some of these links I'm going to put down in the description, there is the list of miscellaneous stuff is ridiculous. Everything from, critical severity to ambush on the ground or narrow sensor bands. A lot of it is calculated in a similar way. Some of it is calculated in a similar way, but takes exception to X, Y, and Z. And so it can get pretty intense and pretty complicated in the way that this stuff goes together when you're putting together your build. Those are things you'll have to kind of look at if you want to dig that far into it. But again, that's really why I play the game, is because of how complicated it is. It just makes it to where there's just an endless amount of recipes and flavors that you can put together and do some amazing things that are unique. So it's not like when you play SOTOR, there's a meta build for every class, and it is what it is, and there's not a lot of variation from that. If you don't have it like that, you're not going to do as well, and there's not a lot of choices. With Star Trek Online, there's just an endless amount of different things that you can do on these builds that can all work and do extremely well in a whole ton of different ways, depending on how you want to play the game. So I hope that was helpful, guys. Like I said, I tried to just keep that straightforward, because it does get extremely complicated. But basically, just to recap, Cat 1 is going to be whatever the weapon is you're looking at. Any kind of percentage increase to that is going to be based off of that base damage that weapon does, and any subsequent Cat 1 boosts that you add to that will continue to be based off that and aren't going to stack on top of or take into account all the other Cat 1s. Cat 2 is going to take into account your base along with all of your Cat 1 boosts that you have. So that's really the crux of it there. And what you're looking for, if you're trying to identify if it's a Cat 2 bonus, is the word bonus. So if it has bonus in there, I haven't seen anything that identifies it as a Category 2 or Cat 2. It is always labeled as bonus damage. So again, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, put them down in the comments. Again, I'm sure there's quite a few of you guys out there that are, experts compared to me on this subject. So if you have anything to add, if I got anything a little bit wrong there, or other things that, in terms of the scope of this kind of conversation that you could add to it to help myself and, newer players out, I certainly always appreciate that. And again, as always, I just want to say thank you to everyone that does comment, subscribes to the channel, gives the thumbs up, and is a part of the community. I really do appreciate that. All right, guys, until next time, stay safe, and thank you very much for watching.